Hey guys, it's Kevin, my review for the new Netflix film Apostle. And what Apostle is essentially about is we center on the character of Thomas Richardson. He is someone who, he used to be very religious, but through a traumatic past, he has since abandoned it, and his sister has been kidnapped by this extremely savage cult, and he basically has to go into, this island essentially and try to track her down and hopefully try to figure out, what really happened. But he very quickly realizes that he is getting himself into much more violent territory than expected. So Apostle overall, I was really hyped for this movie. This is yet another movie that released this week that comes from a director that I very much do admire. Gareth Evans, what he was able to do with the Raid films, I really loved a lot. And that alone had me intrigued. But also when you factor in Dan Stevens and the initial plot of this movie, this just looked like it could be a very intense horror film. And that's exactly what it ends up being. While Apostle is not a perfect movie, it definitely continues that really good streak that I think Netflix is onto. It's definitely one of the creepiest films I have seen all year, and we're just getting to right now. Now, like I said before, one of the things that immediately hooked me into this film is Dan Stevens, and he does a fantastic job here. I really love the character of Thomas Richardson. You could see how adamant he is about tracking down his sister. He will do whatever he can to get to her, going as far as to, sacrifice his life, doing things that might not be in his benefit, but if it gets him closer to his sister, that's what matters to him, and I really love that about this character. He's very rootable in that sense, and especially when things start to go downhill for him, Stevens really does shine in those scenes, and he continues to show why I think he's one of the best upcoming actors out there. I have loved pretty much everything that he's been doing, and this just continues the great streak that he's on. I really loved him in this film a lot. But someone else who I think at points does rival him is Michael Sheen as this cult leader, who is incredible in this film. I mean, just getting into this guy's head. This guy's insane. Malcolm, this character, he really is insane, but also seeing his ideology, how passionate he really is to this cult and things like that, I thought was fantastic. I really loved what he did in this film, and I think he did a fantastic job. And really, the rest of the cast here does do a fantastic job as well. Lucy Boynton, I thought, was very good here. Mark Lewis Jones, I mean, holy shit. I mean, he was just crazy in this film, especially when it comes to the third act. I mean, he was just, I was not expecting him to be as insane as he was. Kristine Froseth from Sierra Burgess is also in here, and she does a very good job. Really, everyone I thought was very well cast here. I think the acting, for the most part, is very strong in this film. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, because I'm sure for a lot of people that was something that, again, is one of the biggest draws, and same for me, because as we know, Gareth Evans, he's a very talented director, but we've only really seen what he can do with martial arts, action films. We haven't really seen what he's able to do with a horror film, and let me just say that he definitely knows what he's doing here. I mean, he's able to implement that sense of feeling very unnerved, and that sense of suspense, and applying it to horror, and it is on a different level here. I love what he was able to do with this film, because sure, the way the film starts off, it doesn't start off like your typical horror film. In fact, it starts off pretty much like a drama, but as things escalate further, the tension really does start to mount, and you see the fear that is really going on within Thomas and within all of us, and especially once the evil is exposed within this cult. I thought he did such a great job with that, and I really love what Evans was able to do with the directing here. I really want to see him do another horror film, because he definitely does have talent in that department, and in any department, I have to say. I think he's honestly, I want to see him do like a comedy. I want to see him tackle every single genre, because this guy definitely knows what he's doing, and I love to see him do more stuff like this. But in terms of the writing, this film, I think, is also so well written. I mean, again, the way it starts off, the second that he enters this remote island, you can just tell something is off. There's a lot of very weird sort of traditions and rituals going on, and again, as the film starts to go on and we start to realize all these various things that are happening, the island, I think, is more fucked up than the cult. I mean, the cult is bad as it is, but the island is just as bad, we start to realize, and I really did love getting into that, and especially when you factor in what happened to his sister and what she's actually involved involved in, I mean, it's insane, and I really love the way it was done. And like I said, you know, his willingness to do whatever he can to find his sister is just crazy, and you can see the just how much Thomas doesn't care. He will do whatever he can to track down his sister, and I really loved getting into that narrative. I think it's very well handled, and you know, I really love that a lot about this story. I think it's definitely a very interesting story overall, and when we cut back to the cult and what they're really doing, the way these two plot lines do eventually, you know, the way these two plot lines do eventually come together, I thought was very strong here. I really enjoyed that a lot. I thought that the story on the cult side of things, yeah, it is insane, and yes, there's a lot of really weird stuff that they're doing, but again, you can make a lot of parallels to that and the remote island, and I really enjoyed that a lot. Really, my only complaint with this film does reside in its side characters, and mainly just Lucy Boynton, because for a while, there was this one romance that happened in the film that I really didn't see the point of. There are these two teenagers in the film. They have this, like, forbidden romance and things like this, and I really did not understand what the point of it was. Like, there is a scene where you see Stevens, he's negotiating with this one guy that, oh, if you know, because he has information about his sister, and he says, you know, I'm going to expose your relationship if you don't handle this right or whatever. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then we keep cutting back to it, and I didn't really see the point of it. And eventually in the third act, it has a huge purpose, and it goes into a place that I really was not expecting it to at all. So then that wasn't really a complaint, but the main complaint is with Lucy Boynton's character. Despite the fact that I do think Boynton did a very good job here, and I do like the scenes between her and Dan Stevens, she really doesn't serve much of a purpose in this film, other than the fact that she is the cult leader's daughter. Other than that, there's really not much of anything to her. She's a very reactionary role, and nothing of consequence really happens to her in the end. And, you know, really all she does here is just to be an aid to Steven's character, and for him to have someone to go to for moral support. That's really all she does here. And again, I think she does a good job in the film, and it's just at the end of the day, I really did not see the point of her character, and a lot of the film is very much devoted to these characters, and it just, I really did not see the point of them doing that. I just didn't really think she was that important in the film, and I think they could have given her a much better role overall, and for a lot of the side characters. A lot of the side characters, minus Thomas, minus, Malcolm, because those two are very well written. I felt there could have been a little bit more going on. I felt we could have gotten into the evil of the town a little bit more, and I think they could have done just a little bit better of a job with that. But that really did make up in the third act, because the third act of this movie is just insane. Without spoiling anything, you guys are honestly not prepared. I mean, you thought that the raid was gory. Holy shit, you've seen nothing yet. This film takes that to another level, to the point where some people might say it's torture porn, but I don't really see it as torture porn. It's definitely purposeful, because again, it's showing the evil of this town. I mean, this town is just relentless, and they're insane, and there's so many crazy rituals that they have, and you really do see that play out here in a way that, again, you know, Evans doesn't try to shy away from that. I think he did a very good job with that. And going to the cinematography, let me just say, it is incredible. I really love the cinematography a lot here. I thought the 1900s time period was very well utilized, but again, I really do applaud him for going all out in terms of the gore, and in terms of the blood, and in terms of the weirdness of this movie. There's a lot of weird stuff going on here, and I really enjoyed that. It reminded me very much of the film Hold the Dark, which came out you know, last week, where that, you know, or 2 weeks ago, that film as well implemented a lot of very weird stuff, but I love when directors aren't afraid to go there. I love when they just go all out with a project, and that's exactly what Evans did here, and I think he did a brilliant job with that overall. There's one scene in particular involving this scalping that goes on, and I don't want to say too much about it, but it happens really when the film is starting to get to its third act, which, like I said, is just sheer craziness, and that whole sequence had me audibly wincing the whole time. I mean, it is just insane, and I really do applaud Evans for going there. There are a lot of directors that would try to shy away from that, and would try to tone it down to make it more accessible for audiences, and Evans does not care about that at all. He wants to showcase the true evil and savagery of this town, and I think he did that so well here. The score as well just gives you this sense of uneasiness, and it prompts this sense of fear into you. I really loved it a lot. lot, particularly this one scene involving Stevens and him in this tunnel. That has to be one of the most intense things I've seen all year. I mean, just the use of the music and the way that it intensifies the scene, I thought was so well done, and I really love that a lot. The editing to this film, I will admit, it is a little bit too long. I think you could have at least shaved off maybe 20 or 30 minutes of this movie. It did take me a little while to get into it, but once the plot does start kicking in, that's really when I started to get into this film. Also, I will say the way the film does end, while I definitely do enjoy it, and I do appreciate what Evans was trying to go for here, I don't think it was well as explored as it could have been. I think they could have maybe gotten a little bit more into it, and that's really the thing with this film. There's a lot of stuff I really do appreciate, like the cult and things like that. But there are some things I think they could have fleshed out a little bit more just to make the movie a little bit better. And again, it's a really good ending. I like the way it's wrapped up. It's definitely very bleak, and I appreciated that. But I just needed a little bit more there, and it just wasn't there for me. For the most part, though, I really enjoyed Apostle a lot. I think this is a very creepy, but a very well-done film. It really does show who Stevens and Evans are as, talents. I think they both are very well utilized here. It's a story that for some might be very hard to watch. It's definitely not for everyone, for sure. If you don't like a lot of very graphic, grisly stuff, then this might not be the film for you. That being said, though, I do think this is one of the better horror films to come out of Netflix. I think they did a very good job with it overall. I really enjoyed Apostle for the most part. I don't think it hit the highs of The Raid, but it definitely does show that Evans is a talent. Evans is definitely someone who can do multiple genres, and it does make me genuinely curious to see what he is going to do next after this film. So at the end of the day, I am going to give Apostle a B. But overall, guys, in my review of Apostle, let me know what you guys thought of this movie. All of your thoughts. And once again, Netflix is just on a high streak all of a sudden. I really don't know what's happening here, but Netflix has been making really solid to great films, and I really hope they do keep that up, except for 22 July. I haven't reviewed that one yet, but that one did not exactly turn out the way that it should have. But other than that, I think they've been very uncharacteristically convincing lately. Very weirdly. I don't know what's been going on, but I really do hope this quality keeps up because Netflix has really been putting out some great stuff lately. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.